Hi everyone, this video is a short explanation or some thoughts on how to think about the content for this week. Like, why are we even studying the history? We're going to talk about history again next week too, and also how that ties into this week's discussion. Although I think based on the discussion, it's really clear to people, because I've already looked at some of the discussion answers, it seems really clear to people why the video is the one that we're talking about this week. So I think that the first thing to say is that the purpose of the history unit is really to provide context and setup to gendered communication styles. And I've said this multiple times all semester, culture changes and gender is a reflection of culture. And therefore, gender expression changes. And these are behavior patterns. They're not concrete. They're patterns. They're things that, yeah, we can measure and have been measured over and over. But just like any other type of pattern or behavior, they don't apply to every single individual. They just apply to people in general. And they are, I'm not going to say that they're stagnant, but they are pretty specific and clear when we go to measure them. So the history gives some background into why those things might have changed over time and some of the ways those things have been explored and expressed. Like if you can connect some of these civil rights movements to the ways that gender expression has changed over time, yeah, there's definitely a connection there. Women didn't used to have the right to vote, and then over the course of time, we have moved away from that in the last 100 years, and along with those things, now women have not only just more civil rights than they did 100 years ago, but also have more freedom of expression. The same way next week we're going to look and see that maybe men's rights haven't shifted as much because they had like the right to vote long before women ever did. But what's considered normal forms of expression have become more broader. And I think we're actually might be in the period of time where we're seeing a shift in both of those things. Although culture's always shifting, so this is always going to be happening. So that's why we're learning about it, to give a little bit of background and framework to it. And then to connect that to the video, you're going to learn this week about like the fourth wave of women's rights, and this video is an artifact from that. The fourth wave is modern. It's probably within the last 8 to 10 years. It is marked by the use of technology. So you're watching a TED Talk. That's technology right there. And it's also, her talk is actually on intersectionality, which is on the idea that forms of oppression are interconnected. And so that is actually at the core of the fourth wave. And to an extent, that's what the third wave was working into, was saying, okay, well, we've got some pretty concrete rights for women. Now maybe we need to start working on concrete rights for other groups of people who are affected by similar issues. So it's just, that was like kind of when intersectionality started to become a thing that people talked about. And now the fourth wave that we are just at the beginning of, that, or maybe starting to be more in the middle, I guess, 8 to 10 years. We'll see. We'll come back in 10 years and find out. Now we're kind of more talking about issues as intersectional, because a lot of the problems that, say, queer people who are queer face are similar to the forms of oppression that women have faced in the past or continue to face, in whether that's in terms of expression or civil rights or a whole bunch of other issues. So it's all connected. And that's how this video relates, is because not only is she an example of the exact concept that we're talking about, the video itself is, and her work, also her arguments are exactly about this issue and about what intersectionality means and the degree to which that's important. So and I was going to show you if I can get the video oh, look, it works. Okay. So that's the first time I've done that, I think, at least this semester. If you look at this, if you Google intersectionality, you're going to get a whole bunch of stuff. And I just thought I'd pull this up. I mean, I don't have control over Google, right? So Wikipedia, that may or may not be a good source. There's videos, and look, Kimberly Crenshaw, the video that we're watching this week, that's on there. It's the first thing, which doesn't surprise me because she has a really good way of talking about it. And some of these might be great sources and some of them might not be. There's another, look, yep, see, Kimberly Crenshaw. I could tell that was going to be the same because of the topic there. And I'm sure if you dug hard enough, there'd be counter arguments to all of this stuff. I would say Kimberly Crenshaw's perspective is maybe, I don't want to say the dominant point of view, but it's like the most widely accepted by scholars, might be a way to look at it. I couldn't tell you how many people, the numbers. Some people just haven't even heard of it. And then I also Googled the images that I thought might be interesting, because some people this makes a lot of sense to them and some people it doesn't. But you could see here, like this one's pretty good. They've got a lot of different things that they're identifying could affect one person, or maybe it doesn't. Like maybe this person, they're from a more privileged class, so that's not as relevant to them, but maybe they are gay, and so the sexuality one does affect them. And so it's just all these different issues. There's another one that's a flow chart that and I'm not saying all these are good, because some of them are probably complete trash. I hope you know that's how the internet works. Some of it's complete trash, some of it's amazing. This one, these ones crack me up because they're a little bit opinionated. I'm not gonna lie about that, but these flow charts are pretty funny. There's the fun guide. Let's see if I can move that. And so it just kind of explains, you probably can't read it on here, but you could kind of get the idea. You could go look for the same one. It goes through this little flow chart, and then at the end it's like oppressions are not isolated. So you don't have to think about them as oppressions if that's not what you want, but you could think about it in terms of limitations about how people can express themselves. And that's definitely, I think it's inextricable. You can't separate it from the kinds of questions that this class raises and the content in this class raises. The last thing I want to say before I go is for the discussion this week, remember there's, I think, 4 or 5 questions. I didn't count, but there's a few. And I tried to give a variety of questions so that if you didn't know how to answer one, you can answer a different one. Or if you found more than one interesting, you can answer more than one. If one you were like, ooh, I don't want to talk about that in the discussion, don't pick a different one. That's an easy way around that in this particular class. So just you can pick one or you can pick more than one. There was a couple students I could tell already who were like, I love 3 questions. So they answered all 3 of them. That's really up to you. Some of you could probably get enough depth for a good response just off one question, or you can answer more. It's great when people go above and beyond, especially in those discussions, because we learn a lot from them. So this video turned out to be a little longer than I intended for it to be. I'm working on that. It's hard because I'm used to teaching. I've taught this class face-to-face so much, so there's a lot of stuff I always want to say to all of you. But I hope you made it to the end, and I hope you made it to the end. And contact me if you need anything. Oh, you're supposed to I hit the wrong button.